What kind of a woman would be attracted to you?
So you're going to be wearing tights? Like a brown boy in tights, big thighs, like they're going to laugh at you.
I'm not saying I've done those things, but I'm not saying that I haven't done those things.
I was so shocked by what I was listening to. Thieves and liars.
I'm definitely a U-hauler.
Sometimes it can feel like people are reinforcing those stereotypes through those compliments.
Stereotypes. Well, this is a good one.
Some of the first stereotypes I came across were about, I think, lesbians moving really quickly. I think that stereotype is a little bit true.
I have a friend who's a lesbian who moved in with someone after 2 weeks, and surprised that didn't work out. But I definitely feel those urges.
There is so many stereotypes about bi people. Some of them are based in some sort of reality. I like to talk about how bi people are confused, right? And the only thing I'm confused about is how I pay my tax. So I'm not confused about my sexuality, but there's plenty of other things that I'm confused about. There are lots of the stereotypes that we cheat, that we are indecisive, that we're lying. Those things are all completely false. And those things are said by people that don't understand us. The second you say bi, there's a list of words that might come to your mind.
When people come across me and they see me dressed like this, it's not really surprising to them. But then if I tell them I dress like this at the moment, but tomorrow I might want to wear a dress or that sort of thing, they just don't really get that part. I think there's a stereotype of a non-binary person to always dress kind of masculine or unisex, and there's not always a lot of room to play with, the fact that, I'm gender fluid, I flow through all genders, which includes femininity and masculinity and, things that don't even have a term really.
The first kind of stereotypes about gay men is the sissy for me, the idea of the kind of effeminate, kind of signalling gay man, and this notion of if I can act sissy in public, then I will attract other gay men to me.
Before I came across any literature, I had no ideas about. I didn't know what a lesbian was.
And when you finally did come across lesbians, how were they often portrayed?
Pain. It was going to be pain, sadness, frustration, bad outcome, probably commit suicide or, be killed by someone's husband. It wasn't good.
The astrology queer girl, the tarot card queer, the cats, and adopting a dog within 2 months of being together. I grew up religious, so everything was the Bible says this and that, and now I'm well, my tarot card said you need to consider your long-term plans. You're probably really emotional right now. Also, Mercury is in retrograde and we're in the middle of a financial crisis.
And the thing that people spoke about lots of was AIDS, and HIV, and I think that was the only association I was aware of. If you're gay, you're gonna get HIV and die, and so there was a lot of fear, and lots of fear, definitely within the church, being told that anything queer or a man laying with a man is wrong. Those kinds of things really weighed heavy on my spirit because I really knew that I was queer, yeah.
Some of the first stereotypes people would immediately think of associated with gay men would be that we're promiscuous, we love RuPaul, and we party hard every weekend. Some of those things are true, some of them not. Not all of them. No, I'm not out partying all weekend. I've got other things to do as well.
Yeah, definitely the sexualization, which is still apparent to this day. I just remember my specifically family as well having this like stereotype built into their brain is that like queer people have more sex, that they do sex all the time. It's just this like weird negative connection between being queer means you're just like gonna have all this sex and be like crazy.
I think the predator was also brought home again and again in public narratives of a stereotype of a gay man who's feeding off, kind of will attack you, will take you. I mean, those terrible things around, you know, pedophilia and kind of abuse, sexual abuse and all those kind of things that seem to be given over to our community in a way you go, actually, we've got very little, if nothing, to do with that.
One of the first things I did to sort of challenge a stereotype was probably by virtue of not doing something. I've never changed my voice, which is something that a lot of trans women do. There's probably like a somewhat identifiable trans voice, I guess you could call it, which is, I guess, what it sounds when like a deeper voice gets pushed a little higher. People have to do voice training. I think it just didn't feel right. Like, it didn't feel authentic. Like, it's really low, but like, I don't know, I like my voice.
The women of the family always champion, but the men in the family were fearful boys, you know, that really were fearful of their own femininity, you know. And when I was in Drag Race, one of the things that Rue said to me about shame, she said, you know, in terms of my father, she said, he can't even accept himself. How will you expect him to accept you? And why do you care? Which is true, I don't.
And was there like a specific I guess an act you did that kind of defied these stereotypes?
I was trained to be a rugby player, and I was actually really good at rugby. And at 16, I had like a crossroads where I was offered a position in a dance company in their youth company, but at the same time I'd been offered like quite a prestigious place in a New Zealand rugby team for boys under the age of 19. And I had to make the decision for myself whether I was going to do the thing that made my dad proud and sort of created the foundation of our relationship, or defy him and do what I wanted to do. The first thing he said to me was, they're going to laugh at you. Like, there are no brown boys doing contemporary dance. Like, so you're going to be wearing tights? Like, a brown boy in tights, big thighs, like, they're going to laugh at you. And so I remember from that point and having that conversation, making the decision for myself, saying, okay, I'm going to do this as a career, and regardless of how hard it's going to be, I'm going to make sure that I succeed and do really, really well, and I'm going to prove him wrong. And I did.
It wasn't the first time but it was my very first high-profile legal action. There was a word that people misappropriated, and it was a slur against young trans women. It wasn't always a slur, it was actually short for transsexual. And being Australia, we make everything shorter, like barbecue becomes Barbie, you know. And this word, starting with T and ending in Y, changed from an abbreviation, a harmless abbreviation, into a weapon of hate used towards young transgender women. And the problem was that, you know, businesses were giving people out in the suburbs permission to use this word in their quiz nights and bingo nights, and you know, and when there wasn't a single trans person to be seen at them. So I sent legal letters, and I was represented by a team of women who understood the implication that this word was. It was, you know, it was demeaning. It became a horrible word. So I took permission back. I have taken that permission back, and I have given it back to the transgender community to do whatever they want with it. If they want to call themselves that word, fine. Because that's what the black community does with the N-word. And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, there are lots of things that anyone has that can be stereotyped. And so I've also encountered the stereotypes about living with HIV. And there are so many misconceptions, and almost all of them can be debunked with science. You know, the fact that we're treated as a threat or as a risk, even though the treatment that I'm on means that I can't pass on the virus to anyone. I have an undetectable viral load, which means the medication I'm on suppresses my viral load to an undetectable level, and I can't pass it on. There are these ideas that we've done something wrong, but HIV doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anyone. It can happen to absolutely anyone. And when you've been through something that difficult, you get a new vision on the world and those around you, a new compassion. And so I consider myself really proud to be one of those people.
Yeah, I think my experience with internalized stereotypes goes way back to being growing up as like a little black girl in a really white area, and there were like a lot of kids that just hadn't ever seen a person of color, didn't have anyone in their immediate vicinity who looked like me, and that led to some really hurtful comments and like being called slurs and stuff from when I was small. And that's kind of given me strength and perspective when I've come out as queer and as non-binary, because in a way I'm already used to people not understanding my identity. And I've had to kind of toughen up and have a thick skin from an early age because of the way that my different identities intersect.
Some days where I'm, dressing more masculine, and then when I'll randomly wear a dress because that's feminine, and you get that like immediate reaction of the words that are used to describe how you look that day are so different. So when I am wearing the dress, it's always like, oh, you look so pretty today, you look so gorgeous today. And then if I'm wearing, something more masculine fitting, it's always like, whoa, you look like handsome, you look hot. And it's, you have to I've had to really I compliment myself how I want to be complimented, and I get validated through that and feel happy and good in how I look because of that, rather than what anyone else is saying, because what they're saying is just not how I think. Sometimes it can feel like people are reinforcing those stereotypes through those compliments, even though they're trying to be nice and they are being nice. There's never any ill intent with those compliments.
And how do you navigate using labels without reinforcing stereotypes, or how do you strike a balance between the two?
It's really easy to label people in the queer community, you have the masc and femme, which is just so present in my world. And every time I do have to fall onto using those words, because it's what the general people around me associate these words with, I always have to do this because I don't want them to think that I'm now saying, oh, well then this means that you are this word of masculine, because it's I struggled with that so much. And I don't want to ever put that out onto a new person. I don't want them to deal with that, what I dealt with. So I'm always very careful with when I use those words. It's very last resort when I use those words.
In the queer community, especially gay men, there's a lot of emphasis on beauty standards and the way we look. I remember I was in a gay water polo team, and there was this pressure to be mask and be muscular, and it was quite damaging because my body is the way it is. I'm the way I am. When I was little, I was very skinny. I felt the pressure to be a muscly Gaysian, and I would work out a lot and would count my calories. I remember I would force myself to eat, and I would get bloated all the time because I wanted to be more ripped and have bulging muscles. And so I had to deal with a lot of that internalized body dysmorphia, I guess.
I would say to study, because I learned about all this through anthropology, which is the study of humans and culture and how we've come to where we are. And I would say, Saren, literally search up, where does masculine and feminine come from? What does it actually mean? And then do that. So the things I would tell other people to do, I would tell younger Saren to just do that.
You'll encounter bullies your entire life. Face them and understand why they're wrong, because the stereotypes are wrong. It's people saying hurtful things that they don't understand. And as soon as you understand that, you will build up your armor and build up your resilience and your ability to be able to counter those things.
I think if I was to go back and give advice to the younger version of myself that was fearful of all of the words and titles and things that people say about me, I think I will say to them now, you know, they're not paying your bills. They won't be paying your bills. So pay those bitches no mind. That's the thing. Yeah, I really don't give a shit what people think about me.
I think my advice for my younger self would be to actually respect people who are those stereotypes, you know, if that's the way they are, and if they are what most people would perceive as the stereotypical gay Asian, you know, that's fine, you know. Everyone's different, they can live their lives. I think the advice that I have for myself is to be less judgmental and critical of other people.
At the end of the day, like, you have to live authentic to yourself. That's what's gonna make you happy. Like, be you for you, don't be you for someone else and someone else's idea.
If I was talking to my younger self about the stereotypes, I'd say, hey, what you're on is fine. You don't have to go be someone else or do something else for someone else. Just be you and find your own way. Just find your own way.